really want to share what shadow work is. And I feel like the best example is through like real life examples. So for me, I was just sitting and thinking about the impact that my grandmother made on my life, including my mother's life. And I'm trying to understand the things that she believed, that she taught me, that are still within me today. So basically, I'm like, this is something that I learned directly from her. This is a belief that I learned from her. Does it serve me today? Are these projections of her wounds, her circumstances, do they serve me now? And that's like a big theme that's going on ultimately when it comes to asking these types of deep introspective questions. And it's not just like a grandmother, a parent, this is for anyone and everyone. You know, the longer that you have contact with an individual, the more likely they have had some type of influence on you. Period. And so what it looks like for me, my grandmother was born in the 1920s. She's a black woman. She's in Chicago. She grew up in Decatur, Illinois, right? But for her, life was, I'm going to work until I get married, and I'm just saving up that money. My grandmother was very pioneering, realistically. She went from Decatur, Illinois to go work at Washington, D.C. And it was really surprising to hear that journey that she did, this very adventurous thing, because she was also extremely like limiting and controlling as far as like the movements that I could make in my own life. And so it's really hard to understand like, okay, well, you went to DC from Decatur, Illinois, you know, essentially by yourself, right? It's very pioneering, right? So I was like, where's the disconnect? And then you start to unravel the different social norms, societal expectations. One for women, right? Because again, it wasn't until the late 1970s that women could actually have their own bank account without a husband. And so there's a lot of talk that like, oh, what do women bring to the table? I mean, one, just their bank accounts to you, because they were never realistically allowed to hold money. So if we talk about irresponsibility of money and finances in women, this is very new. My mom was not taught how to manage her money because my granddad was like, well, you're going to marry a man. He's going to take care of those things for you. And not to say that women can't do both, and they can, right? As well as men. But the knowledge was never given. It was never provided. It was a shut door. We can think about historical aspects of women never being allowed to have money. You have to marry someone in order to have access to your money. And even still, that doesn't mean that you get your money. That's dependent on the person that you marry. And heaven forbid, they're like putting on the front, I'm like this, but realistically, they're just taking your fucking money because in your family name, you have money. So you see how like deep this can go? Just that one aspect there. I was not taught financial literacy from my mom. She had to learn the hard way. Right now, I go back and get some bits and pieces, but I lived through the struggle bus. You know, I lived through it. So I have my own money trauma. Look at that. Like, there's all these different things that coming up just with that. And it's not to say that you have to do it so intentionally like that. It would be great and amazing, right? It just depends on how much of that is stopping you and blocking you from your truth, from your highest self. You know, and that's the best way I can explain what shadow work is, what that looks like when you're intentionally doing this. And those are types of thoughts that you have to think about because it comes to a place of empathy and understanding. Not like, oh, they did me wrong, they effed me over here, blah, 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 blah. Yes, more than likely did. You know, it happens to all of us. None of us are unique to have like this fairy tale land of like, everything's been perfect my entire effing life. No, there's stuff. And even if you've had a very joyful childhood, a very joyful life, there's always work because there's all these people around you projecting their thoughts, opinions, beliefs on a regular basis. And we don't know what is actually governing that. We don't know if it's coming from a place of purity of heart or learned beliefs and behaviors. Because all of us have been taught to put on a mask and put on a show. Guess what, y'all? We've all been in Hollywood. You're a Hollywood star, okay? But that's realistically what they say. Like, you must do this to fit in. If you do something else you don't, you get kicked out the fucking Hive Collective, right? And heaven forbid that, because everyone wants to fit in. How dare you stand out? But then in a lot of ways, we reward people for standing out. So it's like, this is a little confusing. What is actually happening here? But we're not necessarily told to stand out in a way to be authentically ourselves. Authentically you. And that is what's key here. It's unraveling all these thoughts, beliefs of what other people told us, of what other people said to us. Because by age 7, our quote unquote like child, little inner child, can still be running the fucking bus, like making the decisions in our life. Scientifically proven. Listen, you can look this up. They know this. And guess what? They're still perpetuating it. They're teaching you how to be in a system most of the time. Like that's the core of our society. Pick a job, stay in the career, do your thing, you'll be rewarded. 20 years of service, more than likely not now, because it's getting more and more cutthroat. There was a time where the thought was, it takes a community. And that is a timeline when my grandmother grew up, end of the Great Depression. And so there's a little bit of scarcity, a little bit, right? But there's definitely a humbleness. There's definitely like an intense need of savings. It was community businesses at that time that supported one another. The banks actually supported individuals and other businesses. Because if everyone fails around you, you're out of business too, baby. And we sometimes forget the power in that of community. It went from it takes a community to keeping up to the Joneses to every man for himself. But we really need to go back to it takes a community, because there's a lot of shame that can be healed because we have to speak and communicate with others. And even something like this that I'm talking about, shadow work, it works best when you're talking to other people and when you're surrounded by other people. Humans been around forever. Most of the stories that we're dealing with, yes, in modern times, are not necessarily new and unique. As far as like very practical, XYZ, I had a death, my career changed, someone got sick, like all these different things, they're just life experiences that humans have. What's different though is the unique flavor of the interactions that you have. Right? Ultimately though, your unique flavor is what makes you unique. And this is how you connect to your higher self. And when you're expressing and living in your truth and no longer anyone else's, whether that be intentional or unintentional, conscious or unconscious thoughts, beliefs being projected on you, just you sitting here watching this video or any other video out there can influence you. I'm very specific about who I actually hear with my ears, because that gets into your brain and it can adjust your way of thinking. And guess what? That's the main way that marketing right now today is getting to you and trying to keep you in a place where you're worried about everyone else with things. Let me attract you from things, because doing this type of work, it does require going within yourself and questioning things that may not be comfortable. And I have a video about talking about like shit ain't comfortable, but I feel more like myself in doing so. And I wrecked all my shit, all of it. And I do it again. Because the truth of the matter is, I was miserable. I was checking off boxes of what I'm supposed to do and what society says this is XYZ thing, this is going to make you successful. I ran away from a 6-figure career. I don't have to be doing this. A girl got training and such like that, psychic mediumship, shamanism. I do in-person tarot reads here in Denver. But the main thing that I do is shadow work, deep, intense shadow work. And I work with people one-on-one. I would love to get to a point where I could do group. But here's the thing. We struggle with vulnerability. We struggle with judgment. All of us do. I have judged and you have been judged. This is not unique. We try to be, right? We try to be clear of mind. And there's a lot of you that think you're being absolutely authentic and never once sat and thought about what actually makes me me. Because when you're not taught or told, why would that be a thing? You're not taught and told to think like that. You're taught and told this is how you should be. And this is what you should strive for. And X, Y, Z makes you successful. Now listen, there's a lot of people out there that also have just been like, yeah, I've never believed that. I've always done my own thing. Fantastic for you, love. Truly. Sincerely. But a lot of us, no. No. I've always considered myself introspective, and I have been. But ultimately, I've never gone that deep within myself until I went through my quote unquote spiritual awakening. And it came with me doing shadow work, asking myself questions like this. Let me look at the story of my own life, step away from the emotions really quick, take a look back and just play my fucking life like a damn B-roll and add commentary. This Virgo in me. This practical, it's like, let me get rid of the emotion out of it and let's go by the facts. Play by play. Have I been the villain? I've been the villain. Yeah. Have I been a quote unquote victim? In some people's terms, yes. I don't hold on to the term victim. Ever. And I've had some low key victim ass shit happen to me, but I don't identify with that. Because at the end of the day, I choose, you choose your own reality. I create my own reality, yes, but you have to choose steps and actions to create your own reality. You get to choose. What happened yesterday, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, doesn't have to define your life forever. It doesn't have to. You get to choose that. I'm not sitting there and saying that this is a walk in the park and it's super easy and grand. But it doesn't necessarily have to be hard. And it doesn't mean that you need to be doing, like, to get to a point in a place like this in 20 years. Well, I've had 20 years of life experience. So it means it's going to take me 20 years of therapy. No, it doesn't. It's just getting to the core of the things. And that's my magic. That's my magistry, right? It is something that I've done in my career. Personally, like literally, as a professional in the corporate world. Where I point out the key bottlenecks. And I do the same thing for people. And when you focus in on the core things, all the other layers, they fall apart, right? But this is intentional work. It's not for everyone, because once you start unraveling that string, it keeps going. Unless you sew it back in nah, I'm good. It doesn't necessarily work like that. And that's the truth of the matter. Once you start unraveling and unbinding yourself from the thoughts, beliefs, projections, the ones that have been told to you and the ones that you've created in your mind because you're crafting a story to make you feel safe. The little voice in your head that's ruling you to make your decisions, that's your brain trying to keep you safe. But it doesn't necessarily have all the full data because we suppress a nice chunk and part of ourselves. Because ultimately we're told not to pay attention to our emotions, to suppress, especially men. I feel for men more than I feel for women because they're told that if they have any type of effing emotion, there's something inherently wrong and bad about that. And it's so far from the truth. As women, being emotionally tapped in and connected to other people that are not, because this doesn't necessarily matter if you're male or female, right? It just depends on your environment around you, who raised you, in what they were putting in you, right? As far as like ideals and beliefs and opinions. You could be working with the same type of blocks a lot of men do as well, right? And we push it back. We just push through. We got to just like make it happen. And sure, that can work for you for quite a while until it doesn't. Or you can just be like literally just lying to yourself every single effing day. Yes, practical and tangible. Everyone says you have to do this. This means success. This means that, right? But there's others of us like we're trying to get to where we want to do, but you don't necessarily have to force it. This is flow state when you're doing this. When you are equating like your logic and your emotions and bringing it in balance, things just make a lot more sense. It's a lot more easy. And we're told like you got to claw your way up to the top. No. A girl's using back doors these days, because you know I'm going to always reference the Matrix. You don't have to play by those rules. Once you become awake and aware, those rules almost really don't apply to you. Things just happen. And that's the real threat that people feel who are in power. Because when you can operate with back doors, you cannot be controlled. Period. You cannot. You choose sovereignty of the mind. Sovereignty. You do not allow other people to affect you. They can scream, yell, curse at you, be mad, upset and angry because they're putting their projections on you. And they want a reaction out of you. They want you to feel a certain way ultimately. And again, this is a bit of unconscious and conscious. And I'm not just talking about big pharma, big things. I'm like, this can be one-on-one relationships here, but it's deep. It's multi-layered. But again, it doesn't mean that you have to stay stuck in that space forever, or it's going to take 20 years. Hell, like I've worked with someone for 4 hours. We unraveled 20 years of stuff. Yes. And that's why my prices are the prices that they are. But 20 years of traditional therapy, I do, by the way, speak to therapists and I get advice from them as well. Because I understand that this is deep work and I hold space and compassion. But also, I'm going to call you out on the bullshit. Because I need people to call me out on my bullshit. Where I'm still stuck. This is why I say it takes a community. So, this is an example of what shadow work looks like. This is an example of how deep it goes. Right? And this might sound really far-fetched. You know, it's kind of out there in your mind. Maybe you're going through awakening. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're having psychic experiences. Maybe you've been aware your entire life. It doesn't change the fact that you still have blocks because light workers can still project their BS on other people. I didn't actually start my practice until I let go of my ego. And I actually didn't even do tarot readings until I knew I didn't have any biases. Like I did like friends and family a little bit when I first started doing tarot. Because I started with tarot with my mentor at first, and then I got psychic medium classes. But the reason I just pushed tarot aside is because I had a lot of love wounds. Like I was looking for my king, right? But I had a lot of love wounds. And I'm like, someone's going to ask me about fucking love, and I'm like, fuck this shit, blah, 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 blah. I can't give an unbiased reading when I have all these wounds around that. How, you know what I mean? And it's so important for me to make sure that I'm separating those things out and just filter a truth specifically for you. That's my job. And deliver the message in a way that you uniquely need to hear it. Sometimes I'm very like, okay. But either way, there's passion and compassion. Because I speak passionately for a reason. And a lot of times you'll catch me channeling. The insights. But I had to get to a place where I was even allowing that stuff. I'm not sitting here saying this stuff is just like easy, walk in the park. But I promise you, on the other side of it, so much better. and so much more clarity. And I don't sit here and give like just woo like advice. Like it's actionable, practical steps for you to get to where you need to go, to come back home to yourself. And this is how you heal others, by healing yourself. And so if you interact with friends or family or children or like whatever that is, you are no longer subjecting other people to your wounds, because it is not everyone else's individual responsibility to hold space for your wounds. If there's a word that triggers you, a name that triggers you, something that just effing triggers you, you can get mad at whomever out there in the world, period, because we're just supposed to know, that's not on them. That's on you, love. That's not everyone else's responsibility. Please do not put your wounds onto someone else and make it their responsibility to tiptoe around you and live their life, because that's selfish. At the end of the day, it is. That's a big ask, because it's not only just you, then that's like everyone else too. So then we're like this, like I can't talk, I can't speak, I can't do anything, because anything I say, everyone's triggered. That's drowning, tiring. I don't do that. I'll call out my shit like, nah, this is mine. And some people don't want to hear the truth of the matter. It's like, sometimes it really is me. Like, it's not you, it is actually me. Well, sometimes it is though. I was like, I'm not gonna lie, like, my partner, I tell them all the time, I was like, yeah, this you didn't do anything wrong. Like, literally, you had no role, no part in what is coming up to me. You did not create this for me. You did not hurt me, you didn't wound me, you didn't do anything. And now I'm gonna sit here and like project all that onto them. Why are we pushing that onto someone else who was not that person? If you want to be angry at the world, by all means be angry at the world, but also like recognize like sometimes there are specific people that specifically cause you to feel this way. And then we want to take it out on everyone else, and we don't want to look within. We want to keep bouncing to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing without healing, and think that we're going to get something different out of it. And that was like a big thing that I had to do when I unraveled myself. Because I ended my relationship, I ended my career, and I chose to overcome my deepest fucking fears. It didn't happen to me. I did it myself. This is why it's a little different when I talk about other terms like dark night of the soul and shadow work, shadow dancer. These are my own terms, by the way. And I'll talk about it, but let's recognize the truth of the matter here. We do these things to ourselves. You get to choose your reality. You get to choose, nah, that's not serving me. And I'm not saying like fundamental life skills. Like, okay, that fire's hot. Like, don't do that, right? Oh, now I know it's hot. We choose. We choose our reality. We choose our life. We don't know that we get the choice though. That's the key thing. You didn't know you got the choice. So like, if you got to choose the life that you wanted, what would it look like? But sometimes we don't even know who we are to know what we should really be doing, because we have been so hammered down with a whole bunch of other people's stuff. And we have to unravel that. And that's what I'm specifically really good at as far as helping people. In my readings, I don't even really ask people what questions do they have. I start off just, what do you need to hear? Base level, period. What's coming up right now? What is the main focus? Because if you start there, that's going to help unravel all these other things. It's very specific. It's unique. Like, I'm not going to sit here and evergreen everyone to death. That's a business term. Don't worry about it. But essentially, the copy and paste. Here's the template. Here's what you got to do. Boom, boom, boom. Here's that medicine. Check. We subscribe this to everyone. No, it's unique because we are all unique. We might have very similar attributes, but each one of our individual lived experiences make us unique. And there's beauty in that. truly. But we just have to find who we are sometimes. And if that's something that you're looking for, then reach out to me. Schedule a reading with me. I look forward to helping you on this journey. But it's also coming at this with a little bit of sense of adventure, of the unknown, of the unseen. Because life can radically shift. Again, what was yesterday doesn't mean it affects today. Not necessarily. And yes, there's big things like, oh, this happened, blah, blah. But in the grand scheme of things, no. And you get to choose that. Free will, if you will.